You've probably seen A New Hope more times than you can count.
We count 30 rebel ships, Lord Vader.
You know the music, the sounds, the characters. It's basically muscle memory at this point. But a lot of the things you remember as perfect weren't planned that way at all. And once you know what they are, you'll never watch this movie the same way again.
Death Star plans are not in the main computer.
And at the end, we'll check in on the legendary cast to see where they are now. These are 12 happy accidents you missed in Star Wars: A New Hope. Number 12. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a new cinematic masterpiece was born, completely, utterly out of left field. Before it was praised and revered as one of the greatest achievements in cinema, it was a big experimental gamble. George Lucas, the fantasy nerd that he was, drew inspirations from pulp fictions he grew up with and scrambled together a movie the way a kid built a Lego. It's earnest, but scrappy, messy, and riddled with inconsistencies. Yet somehow, movie magic took over and turned accidents into miracles. Let's start with something wholesome. Chewbacca, the galaxy's most loyal co-pilot, was inspired by George Lucas's dog, an Alaskan Malamute named Indiana. Lucas has said that Indiana would sit in the front seat of his car, and people would sometimes mistake her for a person. She was massive, over 130 pounds, covered in long fur, and basically the size of a Wookiee. Lucas thought, what if a big dog co-piloted a spaceship? Yeah, that warmth you feel when Chewie hugs Leia or fixes the Falcon. That's Lucas channeling his actual dog.
This is not gonna work.
Why didn't you say so before?
I did say so before.
And yes, this is the same Indiana who inspired the name of a certain archaeology professor, but that's another story. Did you know Chewie was inspired by a dog? Drop a dog in the comments if this makes you love the character even more. Number 11. When sound designer Ben Burtt first tried creating R2-D2's voice, he used pure electronic synthesizers. The problem? They sounded cold, lifeless. Like a robot, sure, but not like a character. So Burtt did something unusual. He started making noises himself. Baby talk, beeps, boops, weird little vocal sounds. Then he blended those sounds with an ARP synthesizer, processing his voice to make it less human but still organic.
And in combining the two, I was able to get a sense of performance out of the character.
The result was about 50% electronic and 50% human. That's why you care when R2 screams. That's why you laugh when he sasses C-3PO.
And you can combine my voice with it.
There's a person in there buried under the bleeps. Without that accident, R2 would have been forgettable. Just goes to show that a little bit of creativity and a touch of humanity goes a long way to turn what could have been just a lifeless metallic MacGuffin into a lovable puppy-like sidekick. One that will go on to inspire more cinematic machines with a heart for decades to come. Number 10. Burt wasn't done yet. Chewie needed a voice, and Lucas wanted it to sound like a bear. But when Burt recorded bears, they didn't quite capture the emotional range he needed.
What would he sound like? He's not going to speak English. He's going to speak some sort of alien, animal type of voice. It's supposed to be an intelligent language, but not English, and not German, not French, not something we really recognize.
So he went full mad scientist. Bears became the foundation. Then he layered in walruses, lions, dogs, badgers, and seals. Each animal contributed a different tone. Bears for power, walruses for depth, lions for aggression.
I collected lots of bear sounds, as well as walruses and lions and badgers and sick animals and domestic and all sorts of things.
One of the key sounds came from a walrus at Marineland in Long Beach, California. The pool had been drained for cleaning, and the walrus was stuck at the bottom, moaning. Burt recorded it and said, "That's the sound." Chewbacca's voice is basically a zoo trapped in one character, guttural, otherworldly, but with a hint of feral warmth, and it works perfectly. And later, we'll get to the accident that didn't just improve Star Wars. It changed how every movie has sounded since 1977. Number 9. Here's where things get iconic. The lightsaber sound is one of the most recognizable noises in cinema history, and it came from 2 accidents. Burt was working as a projectionist at USC Film School, and he noticed the hum from the old 35mm projectors. It had this low mechanical drone that felt almost mystical. He recorded it, but it wasn't dangerous enough. A few days later, Burt had a broken microphone cable. When he walked past his TV, the cable picked up interference from the picture tube, a buzzing, electric hum. He mixed the two sounds together.
Take, for example, the lightsaber. The sound of the weapon came from two different, unexpected sources.
Projector motor plus TV interference. Yeah, that became the lightsaber's hum. Then he played the sound through speakers and waved another microphone around them to create the Doppler effect. That whooshing sound when a lightsaber moves through the air, a broken cable, an old projector. Boom. And suddenly, you had the weapon of a Jedi Knight. And the life-changing sound came from everyday noises we would otherwise never pay attention to.
Making a new recording of it with another microphone and swinging the microphone around in front of the speaker produces a Doppler effect.
Evidence number 1 that we don't give sound engineers and Foley artists enough credits for the incredibly meticulous work they do. What's the most iconic sound in Star Wars to you? Lightsaber? Blaster? TIE Fighter Scream? Let me know below. Number 8. The blaster sound is just as famous. And it happened on a family vacation. Bert was hiking in the Pocono Mountains with his father when they passed a radio tower. His dad grabbed a rock and smacked one of the guy wires, those thick metal cables that stabilize the tower. The sound it made was a sharp metallic twang. Bert's father said it sounded like an imaginary laser gun, and he was right. Bert later searched all over Los Angeles for the perfect radio tower, hitting guy wires with a hammer and wrench until he found the right tone. He layered in some bazooka blast sounds for weight, and that became the blaster. The sound of every stormtrooper shot, every Han Solo quick draw, every firefight in the saga, all because someone hit a radio tower with a rock.
And that wire on that particular radio tower became the basis for all the blasters.
Evidence number 2 that we need to give sound engineers and Foley artists more credits for their contribution. Who would have thought finding the right sound involved that much adventure on its own? Number 7. TIE fighters are terrifying, and a lot of that terror is in the sound. Bert wanted them to sound like World War II dive bombers, which used sirens to scare civilians during air raids. He started with elephant calls from a 1958 Errol Flynn adventure movie called The Roots of Heaven. He slowed down the elephants until they sounded menacing. But it still wasn't enough. Then Bert recorded cars driving on wet pavement. The swoosh of a car plowing through water gave the TIE fighters their scream. He combined the two sounds, thinking he was making a laser effect. But when Lucas heard it, he loved it. Bam! It became the sound of the TIE fighters, elephants, and rain. That's all it took to make the Empire sound unstoppable. I think I should stop counting evidence and just bow at the altar of Bert's genius. By the way, if you think these are wild already, we haven't even touched the moment that almost derailed the entire movie and somehow made it better. Number 6. This one's a smaller moment, but it shows how accidents saved scenes. At the end of the film, during the medal ceremony, Harrison Ford grabbed Mark Hamill's hand to help keep their movements in sync with Carrie Fisher's reaction shots. According to Hamill, who shared the story on social media in 2021, it was Ford's idea to hold hands so their movements would be consistent and Carrie's eye line would match up. It wasn't scripted. It was just Ford solving a problem in the moment. The result? The scene feels warmer. You get this subtle sense of brotherhood between Luke and Han, and the edits flow cleanly. Sometimes the best fixes come from just doing what feels right. Number 5. This one changed everything. In the original script, Obi-Wan Kenobi didn't die. He was supposed to escape the Death Star with Luke, Leia, and Han, then sit around in the Rebel War Room giving advice. But during script development, George Lucas's wife Marcia had an idea: kill him. Lucas later said in a 1977 interview that Marcia thought it was a pretty outrageous idea, and he had been thinking about it too. So they did it. Obi-Wan sacrifices himself, then comes back as a Force ghost. Here's what makes this brilliant. Lucas originally struggled with how to keep Obi-Wan relevant after the Death Star escape. The character would just be standing around, another mentor voice in a crowded scene. By killing him, suddenly he becomes more present. His voice echoes in Luke's head during the Death Star trench run. Use the Force, Luke. Man, that iconic moment doesn't exist if Obi-Wan is alive sitting in a command center watching monitors. That decision gave the Force stakes. It made Darth Vader scarier. It gave Luke a reason to grow up. And it set the foundation for Yoda, for Force ghosts, for the entire mythology of the Jedi living on after death. It wasn't just a death, it was a pivotal point of no return that the story needed to propel itself to the next level. Without it, the story would technically still be fine. The plot could still progress, as it were, but it would have lacked the sense of danger and uncertainty so critical to Luke's path going forward. It would have been alright, not great. Now, thanks to Marcia, generations of filmmakers get a cheat code on how to instantly raise the stakes of their movies. Marcia has said, "I sort of pride myself on killing Obi-Wan Kenobi." Number 4. Harrison Ford is Han Solo. It's impossible to imagine anyone else in that role, but Lucas didn't want him. Ford had played Bob Falfa in American Graffiti, and Lucas had one strict rule when casting Star Wars. No actors from American Graffiti. He didn't want to be typecast as a director who reused the same people, so Ford wasn't allowed to audition. Instead, Lucas hired him to read lines with the other actors who were auditioning. Ford's main job at the time was carpentry. He was just there to help. But as Lucas watched the screen tests, he realized something. Ford was better than everyone auditioning.
Yeah, great at getting us into trouble.
I didn't hear you give any ideas.
Well, anything's better than just hanging around waiting for him to pick us up.
Who do you think?
I mean, how he or anyone ever doubted that is beyond me. Ford never tried to act cool or swag. He is cool and swag to an almost inhumane level. Come on, that charisma isn't something you can just audition, you find it once or you don't. Period. Ford later said in a Reddit AMA that he had helped George Lucas audition other actors for the principal parts, and with no expectation or indication that he might be considered for the part of Han. So he was quite surprised when Lucas offered him the part. Lucas broke his own rule, and the galaxy far, far away got its greatest scoundrel. Can you imagine anyone else as Han Solo? Because I honestly can't. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Number 3. The opening crawl is iconic, but the first version was a disaster. Lucas wrote 6 paragraphs, 4 sentences each. Dense, complicated, full of terms nobody understood. He showed it to a group of filmmaker friends, including Brian De Palma, who was directing Carrie at the same time. De Palma threw his hands up and said, "George, you're out of your mind." Ha, let me sit down and write this for you. De Palma and screenwriter Jay Cox rewrote the crawl. They cut it down to 3 paragraphs. They simplified the language. They made it punchy. It's copywriting at its utmost brilliance. Lucas later called the original version gobbledygook. Without De Palma's intervention, audiences would have been confused before the movie even started. Instead, they got one of the most memorable openings in film history. And that is why it's important to have friends who would call out your nonsense. In Lucas' case, he was incredibly smart and lucky. He's got a few. Marcia De Palma, who helped turn his mess into an iconic creation. And speaking of things nobody planned, wait until you hear how an actual mistake ended up defining the entire identity of Star Wars. Number 2. Let's pull back for a second. Notice a pattern? Lightsabers, blasters, TIE fighters, Chewbacca, R2-D2. Almost none of the sounds in Star Wars came from machines. They came from radios, motors, animals, broken cables, wet pavement, and a guy hitting a radio tower with a rock. Ben Burtt's entire philosophy was this: if you want a galaxy to feel real, make it sound real. Here's the thing. In the 1970s, most sci-fi films used Moog synthesizers and electronic oscillators for everything. Logan's Run, The Andromeda Strain, even 2001, A Space Odyssey. They all sounded synthetic, clean, futuristic in that sterile, beeping way. Burt rejected all of that. He wanted Star Wars to sound dirty, mechanical, like these spaceships had been flying for decades and needed oil changes. So instead of programming sounds on a keyboard, he went out into the world with a tape recorder. He recorded everything: refrigerator hums, air conditioner motors, jets taking off, his own voice. Then he'd slow them down, speed them up, layer them, reverse them.
There's a cast of characters that were involved in the gathering of sounds for Star Wars that made major contributions.
Treating real-world sounds like paint on a canvas. The result? A sonic landscape that felt tangible. When you heard the Millennium Falcon's engines, you believed that ship had mass and weight. Yes, when a blaster fired, it felt like it could hurt. No synthesizer-heavy sci-fi cliches, no fake laser noises, just organic sounds from the world around us, layered and processed until they felt alien. That approach changed how movies sound forever. Before Star Wars, sci-fi was electronic and sterile. After Star Wars, it was physical and lived in, and the ripple effect was massive. When Ridley Scott made Alien 2 years later, his sound team followed Burt's lead: organic, industrial sounds. When James Cameron made The Terminator, same thing. Even modern films like Dune and Blade Runner 2049 owe their sonic identity to what Burt pioneered in 1977. And it all started because Burt couldn't find the right sounds in a studio, so he went outside and started hitting things. Nearly 5 decades later, that analog quality has proven to stand the test of time, unblemished by the rapid development of technology. That's what you get when you actually draw from the real world. It lasts. Number 1. Here's the biggest accident of all. A New Hope was messy. It was improvised. It was uncertain. But that's exactly why it worked. Audiences didn't want a polished, sterile vision of the future. They wanted something that felt real. Something with rust, dents, and dirt.
I'm right with you, Red 3.
Lucas has said that himself. He wanted a world that had squeaks and motors that weren't smooth or quiet. And because the movie embraced its imperfections, it felt believable. In a world where studios race to make everything more polished and perfect, they could use Lucas's ragtag sensibility. AI can make everything precise and efficient, but it's also robotic and cold too. What makes these classics resonate is the weird human folly peppered in unexpected places. They are not anomalies to be eliminated, but quirks to be embraced. That philosophy influenced everything Lucas did after Indiana Jones, the prequels, The Mandalorian. Even today, the best Star Wars content is the stuff that feels a little broken, a little lived in.
One up, watch it. I can't see it. It's on me tight, I can't take it.
Because accidents aren't mistakes, they're opportunities. And Star Wars proved that sometimes the best way to make something iconic is to let it be a little imperfect. So there you have it. From a dog named Indiana to a broken microphone cable. From a walrus in a drained pool to a director's wife saying, "Kill the mentor." Star Wars became legendary because people took risks and trusted their instincts. Now, let's see where the people who brought this galaxy to life are today. Mark Hamill was 24 years old at the time of filming. Production began March 1976. He's currently 73 years old. His most recent work was a guest appearance in LEGO Star Wars: Rebuild the Galaxy, Pieces of the Past in 2025. Hamill is also renowned for his voice acting career, particularly as the Joker in Batman, the animated series.
I must say, Batsy, I'm flattered. The end of the world, and you want to spend it with me.
Harrison Ford was 34 years old when the film was released in 1977. He was 33 when filming began.
That old man got the tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip. Okay, hit it!
He's currently 82 years old. His most recent work was in the film Captain America: Brave New World in 2025, and the series Shrinking in 2024. Carrie Fisher was 19 years old at the time of filming, born October 21st, 1956.
Can't get out that way.
Looks like you managed to cut off her only escape.
Carrie died in 2016 at 60 years old due to cardiac arrest caused by sleep apnea and other undetermined factors. Her last work as an actress was in the posthumously released film Star Wars: The Last Jedi in 2017. Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca, was 32 years old at the time of filming, born May 19, 1944. Peter died in 2019 at 74 years old due to a heart attack.
Therefore, this character represents the guy next door, the person that looked after you in a group.
His last work as Chewbacca was in the film Star Wars: The Force Awakens in 2015, after which he served as a consultant for The Last Jedi in 2017. Anthony Daniels, C-3PO, was 30 years old at the time of filming, born February 21st, 1946.
Where have you been? They're heading in this direction. What are we going to do? We'll be sent to the spice mines of Kessel.
He's currently 78 years old. His most recent work was in the 2024 animated short How Not to Draw R2-D2 and hosting Star Wars in concert in Los Angeles in November 2024. In January 2026, he hosted new LEGO Smart Play Star Wars sets at the Nuremberg Toy Fair. Daniels is the only actor to have appeared in all 11 theatrically released Star Wars films. Kenny Baker, R2-D2, was 42 years old at the time of filming, born August 24th, 1934.
I got into it eventually because I put the lid on me like a boiled egg, you know. Put the lid on.
Kenny died in 2016 at 81 years old due to a long illness involving respiratory problems. His last work as R2-D2 was serving as a consultant on Star Wars: The Force Awakens in 2015. David Prowse, Darth Vader body, was 41 years old at the time of filming, born July 1st, 1935. David died in 2020 at 85 years old due to complications from COVID-19.
Commander, tear this ship apart until you found those plans and bring me the passengers. I want them alive!
He had also been suffering from Alzheimer's disease. His last work in the Star Wars franchise was in the original trilogy, with his final appearance as Darth Vader in Star Wars Return of the Jedi in 1983. James Earl Jones, Darth Vader voice.
If you only knew the power of the dark side. When I first saw the dialogue that said, "Luke, I am your father,"
was 45 years old when Star Wars was released in 1977. Born January 17, 1931. James died in 2024 at 93 years old. The cause of death was not immediately disclosed. His last work voicing Darth Vader was through archived recordings and AI technology in the series Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi in 2022, though he also had voice work in Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker in 2019. What's your favorite Star Wars accident from this list? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, check out the video I'll drop on the left. Same energy, same behind-the-scenes chaos, same iconic results.